Hi all, thanks for joining this presentation. Today's topic I'm going to cover identifying cyber attacks early and mounting targeted defense. Quick look on agenda, cyber threat landscape 2020, Singapore cyber threat trend, cyber threat business impact, defenders response phases. With the defenders response phases, I'm going to talk about some of the mitigation strategies to reduce the risk. Then comes the customer pain points, and finally our managed cyber defense service. Moving on, threat landscape 2020, top attacks 2020. Top attack being ransomware. In comparison to last year, which is 16%, this year it was around 25%, which basically means 1 out of 4 incidents we observe and investigate is ransomware. Okay, topmost attack type is ransomware. In comparison to last year, it was around 16%, and this year it was around 25%. This 25% shows that 1 out of 4 incidents we investigate is a ransomware. There is no one single industry which is not impacted with ransomware. Hospitality, especially healthcare sector and education sector, is worst hit by ransomware. There is a prediction by cyber security firm called Cyber Security Ventures that every business, at least one business, will fall victim to a ransomware attack every 11 seconds in 2021. And this number was 14 seconds in 2019. Moving on to server access, the next most top attack vector. It's more of a server-based vulnerabilities. Servers are not properly patched with the latest CVEs. Third most attack type is BEC, business email compromise. It's more of an impersonation attack where the CEO or CFO, as if like email coming from CEO or CFO, the request is given to someone in a finance department asking them to do a wire transfer. Normally the wire transfer is to an account which attacker have the control. I have top ransomware variants by volume in the right hand side. The first being Snake ransomware, which is close to 6%, which is put in a reverse order, followed by Maze, which is 12%, and then the third one is RE Evil, Sodinoki B, which is the topmost ransom variant by volume, and the percentage is 29. Ransomware, the RE Evil ransomware threat actors use multiple techniques for infection. One, brute force, RDP brute force. The second one, sending a malicious link via ad network. In the others category, I have Ryuk. Ryuk is a ransomware variant, and if you have recently heard, a lot of US hospitals has been shut down because of this ransomware, and FDA has already issued a warning on this ransomware. Moving on, Singapore top cyber threats. We already saw phishing and ransomware in previous slides. The other top attack vector is website defacement. With website defacement, basically we are talking about an attack type where web server is compromised by well-known web application attacks like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or via vulnerable third-party plugins. Once the server is compromised, the author has unauthorized access. The ransomware authors have an unauthorized access. They try to prove a point by putting inappropriate content in the web page. Moving on, I've shared some news dark trace reading titles. If you just Google around, there are a lot more content on ransomware. 2 key points to note down on dark trace, dark reading titles. Rising ransomware breaches. The first title, Rising ransomware breaches _ cybersecurity failures, clearly shows that there is a lack of defense or there is an improvement required in the defense. The second title, Prolific Cybercrime Group now focused on ransomware, shows that multiple cyber threat actors joining hands together. Earlier, this cybercrime actors could have been doing a different business by stealing money from stealing credit cards, siphoning off the money through credit cards. Now focusing on ransomware because ransomware is giving them handsome profits and huge profit margin. But from the defender side, more thing to worry about is more disruption to business. Moving on, threat actors also improving their operation models and tactics. With traditional model, you can see here the ransomware authors directly sell the code to the second or third stage operators, and second or third stage operators infect the victim and a victim pays back directly to the ransomware authors. With this model, the second stage or third stage operators take directly the ransomware money. The change with the ransomware as a service model is ransomware authors enable or enable a platform for the affiliates or the second stage or third stage operators. They sell it as a platform as a service, where they are enabling the affiliates to infect the victim. The victim pays back directly to the ransomware authors, which is a difference, and the ransomware authors pay back to the affiliates a percent, which is 10 or 30%. The two key things to note down in this model: the sophistication, still since the ransomware authors retain the code, the sophistication layer can be added based on the defenses developed. Second thing to note down, there is a low entry barrier for the ransomware operators, because ransomware authors is enabling them with a platform which is required to infect the victim. There is a change in trend in ransomware, where typically cyber threat actors, once they steal the money or steal the data from the victim, they either delete the data if the victim is not paying the ransom, or they do some sort of a destruction. But the change in trend is they now started doing an extortion campaign, where they asking victim to pay a ransom, else the stolen data will be posted online in an internet or dark web forums. So because of this, the victim is forced to pay a ransom. BBC link mentioned here has a negotiation happening between the cyber threat actors and the victim. This slide shows a classic case of RE evil threat actors posting in the dark web forum, where they clearly announcing the data auction, which is a stolen data. Here the victim is denying to pay the ransom, so they are ready to put the stolen data in auction in dark web. Is ransomware effective? Yes, the attack succeeds by 73%, which clearly shows that defenses has to be improved a lot. Ransomware payments. The chart shows the average ransomware payment per quarter. If you see the chart in Q3 of 2018, on average it was close to $6,000 has been paid as a ransom. In Q2 of 2020, it was close to 0.17 million, which clearly shows that the threat actors are winning the game. And within one quarter of 2020 and Q2 of 2020, it was close to 60% increase in ransomware money. And also it was around 16 days is a business disruption from the statistics. Moving on, ransomware infection vector. So top vectors: RDP, phishing, scan and exploit, drive-by downloads. RDP, if you haven't server ports open in the internet, even though you secure with the password, still attackers are trying to do a brute force and then take control of the server. Once they have the server access, they do a lateral movement to gain additional footage. The second thing is phishing. I think no explanation required on phishing. We move on to scan and exploit. Scan and exploit is more about scanning for open servers which is vulnerable, and then they exploit it for further compromise. The last one is drive-by downloads. This is by an end user downloading a malicious software with an unintentional download, where the software is enabling the attackers a backdoor access. Sometimes this doesn't require a user interaction. Another trend, the drive-by downloads, is the top attack vector, at least for last 2 to 3 quarters in Singapore. Moving on, ransomware kill chain. If you see the tactics initial access, we already saw in initial infection vector, RDP brute force and scanning internet facing system, vulnerable internet facing system is part of a scan and exploit we discussed earlier. Once attacker have an access, low level user access on the end user machine, they move on to a credential theft tactic, which is basically they use a Mimikatz tool to dump the password hash credentials, and with the password hashes gathered, they use a password decryption or crackers to come up with a plain text password. So from user level access in credential theft tactic, they have an administrative credentials. Once they have the administration credentials of the end user machine, now they do a lateral movement. Lateral movement is more about once they have an access, they are trying to gather around the network to see what they can steal around the network, the data, or it could be an intellectual property or data also. So in the lateral movement, normally they use a technique called living off the land technique. So what is living off the land technique? If they download a malicious binary, easily detectable by the detection tools. So they start using Windows inbuilt tools like PowerShell, PS Execute. These tools are used by regular Windows sysadmins for the regular course of the business. So two things to note down. One, in a way they are trying to evade the defenses like detection tools, and second thing, since these tools are all used by Windows administrators as a regular course of business, SOC team has to investigate every use case of this tool usage to come up with the malicious activity. The next in the kill chain, next tactic in the kill chain is a persistence. What the attacker, once they gain a control on this machine, now they want the access to be permanent. So they want the backdoor access always. Even if the end user reboot the laptop, they want the persistence access. They enable new accounts in the end user device, or through GPO changes, or using shadow IT tools. Once they do a persistence, they steal the data and finally put the payload, depending upon the ransomware variant. So current slide shows the top three phases of a cyber security incident framework: prevent, detect, and respond. With prevent, we are trying to limit or contain the potential cybersecurity incident, and with detect, we are trying to detect an incident, which is an incident either through logs or the alerts coming from the preventive solutions. With prevent phase, we have preventive solutions like EDR, firewalls, IPS, antivirus. All those are preventive solutions deployed, and most enterprise are good at doing implementing the preventive solutions. In next phase, which is the detection phase, we are trying to detect an attack with logs collected or alert notification coming from the preventive solutions. Next comes the response phase, where we used to once an incident is declared, we follow up the incident response plan and see how we can limit the damage. With three phases, most enterprise good at doing preventive solutions, but however on detect and respond, still there are some lacking. Are preventive solutions alone good enough? The answer is no. So all three phases should work together to see how it's a security defense in depth approach, meaning all phases to work together. Even one control in the prevent phase fails, still the other control in detection phase will help to mitigate the threats. So security defense in depth approach. I have listed down some of the preventive measures or countermeasures which can be deployed for ransomware threats. The first one being end user awareness. End user awareness is about raising awareness to the users about cyber threats, phishing, credential stuffing, etc. One thing to note down to improve the defenses is testing our own defenses, meaning employing a phishing toolkit, do a simulation campaign, of course with approval from senior management, employing a phishing kit, send a phishing email to employees and see who fall as a victim. So we can educate those employees. Instead of attacker testing our defenses, we test our own defenses. Next one I have is review RDP access rules. RDP access rules, RDP ports being open from internet is not required. So RDP port access should be closed. Next one in the countermeasures I have is backup plan, which is 3-2-1 strategy. The 3 stands for 1 copy in a production, next 2 copies in a non-production environment. The next 2 stands for to reduce the hazards, we need to have copy in 2 type of media. One media could be a disk, second media could be tape drives. The last one stands for non-production copy, which means a backup copy taken and put it in an offsite, which is your DR facility. So in case if your entire production data backup is deleted, you still can recover from the offsite backup. With the lessons learned report, the threat actors also know that enterprise will do a backup. they delete the backup. The first thing they do when they compromise the network is to delete the backups. So in a way, only offsite DR backup is going to help us. Next comes the vulnerability management. As a defenders, we need to improve the timelines for vulnerability management. The reason behind, when Microsoft releases the patch on Tuesday, the attackers do the reverse engineering on Wednesday and Thursday. They are ready by Friday, which means they are in the game very fast. But as a defenders, we need to improve the timelines. As per the statistics, 40 to 50% of the risk is minimized if you do a proper patching. Next countermeasures is a network segmentation. With network segmentation, we are talking about, let's say one end user machine is compromised. It could be an engineering function or some other function, and the attacker is trying to move from one network to other network. With proper network segmentation in a place, we can try to limit the attacker moving from one network zone to other network zone. Also, it's a zero trust concept. It is pioneered by Forrester in 2011, which states that trust no device by default. Authenticate the device, validate for the level of access, and then grant the access only required or need to know basis. Next comes the multi-factor authentication. With multi-factor authentication, we are talking about not just relying on passwords, using two-factor authentication and adding one more factor. Multi-factor authentication and network segmentation is part of zero trust concept. And next one is privileged access management. Privileged access should be managed and controlled so that the attacker is not misusing the privileged access. So it's part of a basic cyber security control, which we call it as cyber hygiene. The last one in the list I have is cyber insurance. The cyber insurance will reduce the risk exposure because of ransomware attack, and it's a hot industry because of a lot of ransomware attacks happening now. Moving on. So in detection phase, where we do as a defenders, where to detect an attacks? There are 7 stages in kill chain. Mostly focus on lateral movement or stage and exfiltration. The reason behind, when attacker have to compromise the end user machine, they have to move laterally from one machine to other machine in the network. So if there is a malicious behavior observed in the network, we can easily catch the malicious behavior. So to focus should be on lateral movement. Stage and exfiltration is too late, but still it's better, like attacker bringing the network into a host stage. Moving on, how to detect an attacks? I have a pyramid. I would like to explain the pyramid of pain. Actually, the pain here refers to a difficulty the attacker has to experience to actually, sorry, pass. Okay, the pyramid of pain explains the difficulty attacker has to face to overcome the defenses. In this pyramid, if you see the lower bottom, there's a hash value as a countermeasure. Now, let's say you compute a hash value from a file. The antivirus is also having a hash value with malicious behavior. The hash value computed for a malicious behavior. The attacker easily changes the file content, so the hash value doesn't become similar. So the threat actors is easily bypassing this countermeasure, which is a hash value. So it's trivial for the attacker to bypass the hash values. Then comes the IP address in the pyramid. When you put a filter in a firewall, an access list in a firewall with the source IP address of the attacker, attacker uses a proxy network or a tar to bypass the source IP address. So it's easy for an attacker to bypass this control. The third one in the pyramid is domain names. Attacker do host an infrastructure for domain names, so easily it can be bypassed. Next in the ladder, I have network and host artifacts. When we talk about network and host artifacts, it's more about, for the host it is about registry settings, and then the network it's more of an URL and other settings. So is it difficult for an attacker to bypass? Yes, it might be slightly annoying for the attacker, but not very difficult. Then moving on in the pyramid, we have tools. Catching the attacker behavior using your tools might be challenging, but not very difficult. Next in the pyramid, I have TTPs, which is basically stands for tactics, techniques, and procedures. What is tactics, techniques and procedures? It's actually a behavior which attacker have to go through from initial compromise to final foothold. So it's clearly documented that what is the behavior attacker show when they do the initial compromise to foothold. So MITRE ATT&CK is a framework which actually documented all these tactics, techniques and procedures which can be used to improve the defenses. It is based on the lessons learned report from the larger security community and the real world observation from the many security breaches. Moving on, for the detection we can effectively use network behavior detection. First of all, we need to understand what is normal to catch abnormal. So network behavior detection can help only if you know what is normal. Also we talked about MITRE ATT&CK framework. We can define a use case library for TTPs in an SIM to improve the defenses, and continuous monitoring is also essential to improve the detection phase. Threat intelligence and threat hunting is going to be giving more power to the detection phase. If you are not able to catch the attacker on the first two phases, prevention and detection, if you are at the response phase, we have to isolate the compromised endpoint, and then there is a project called No More Ransomware project, which actually has decryption keys for some of the ransomware variants. The No More Ransomware is a community driven project which can be freely used. The next one in the countermeasure I have is incident response. We should have a proper incident response plan to effectively mitigate the threat as well as to contain the incident in a shorter time frame. If you don't have a proper incident response plan, it may take even longer time to restore from the incident. One incident I would like to note down, Universal Health Services is a US healthcare giant. They are down because of ransomware attack close to 3 weeks. It was not confirmed what is the ransomware variant. It is suspected to be a Ryuk, but however the response timeline can even be extended beyond 3 weeks if you don't have a proper incident response plan. Then IT forensics. IT forensics, we are talking about taking a legal, the baseline, the system image copy if you have to take a legal action. So system copy, mirror image of the system is essential to do a legal action. Then last comes the BCP-DR. Business impact assessment is very critical to have a BCP-DR properly implemented. Also RTO and RPO, which means basically the timeline we need to restore the business. Top customer pain points. When we do a customer engagements, these are the top pain points we come across: lack of budget, lack of skilled staff, low security awareness among employees, too much data to analyze, and lack of automation. Especially on the skilled staff, there's a study from ISC Square, Cybersecurity Workforce Study, which clearly shows that there's a talent gap of 64%, especially in APAC. With that challenges ahead, organizations are looking for a partner who can assist them with their cybersecurity requirements. T-Systems has managed cyber defense service. It's an end-to-end service where we offer consulting, integration as well as operations. We have a SOC facility in Singapore. SOC facility is mostly focused on Singapore and APAC customers. With all phases we have talked about, prevent, defend, detect as well as respond, SOC team is able to assist customer on all the phases. The value add we bring to our customers: T-Systems is a global MSSP with 17 SOCs globally. We have a highly skilled expert with security professional working around the clock on 24/7 basis, and automated and unique threat intelligence. With respect to the threat intelligence, T-Systems have deployed a honeypot infrastructure where the honeypot infrastructure is able to give us the intelligence. This is fed into our SOC platforms, which enables a SOC team to be more proactive and more vigilant in terms of mitigating the cyber threats. Next, we have predefined use case libraries. We talked about TTPs. The TTPs are enabled as the way to detect the techniques, tactics and procedures has been enabled as a detection use case libraries from the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So in short, this is predefined, which means when customer has to be onboarded, we are fast we can immediately enable this use case libraries, so quicker turnaround. Then last, I have hybrid operation models. We also support hybrid operations with the SOC operations model. With that note, I would like to end my presentation. I hope you have some key takeaways from this presentation. Thanks for joining.